When we think about love, especially in its early stages, it often seems spontaneous, passionate, and fueled by feelings we can't control. Society has long romanticized the idea of falling head over heels, of losing oneself in another person. But smart women understand something deeply important about love. It's not just about feeling, it's about knowing. It's not merely about chemistry, it's about compatibility. Smart women don't ignore emotions, but they don't let emotions rule them either. They lead with emotional intelligence, not impulsive attraction. And emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, regulate, and manage one's own emotions, while also recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others, is a central force in how smart women navigate relationships. It helps them pause before reacting, reflect before committing, and question before surrendering. While others may dive headfirst into romance, smart women observe, listen, and ask themselves whether what they're feeling is rooted in reality or fantasy. And the reason emotional intelligence is so powerful is because it brings self-awareness to the forefront. Smart women are highly attuned to what they want, not just superficially but deeply. They know their attachment styles, they've reflected on past wounds, and they are aware of patterns that have shaped their previous relationships. This self-awareness doesn't make them cold or closed off. It makes them clear. They don't confuse intensity with intimacy or passion with partnership. When they feel drawn to someone, they examine the why behind that attraction. Is it rooted in genuine compatibility, shared values, emotional safety, or is it merely chemistry, something that can be as dangerous as it is thrilling when it stands alone? And one of the most important things smart women do differently is that they don't idealize potential. They see people as they are, not as they wish they were. Emotional intelligence has taught them that falling for someone's potential is a risky game because it can trap you in a relationship with someone who might never become what you hope. So instead of getting swept away by charm, looks, or even momentary connection, they assess. Does this person show consistency over time? Do they communicate with honesty? Are they emotionally available? Are they capable of mutual respect and growth? And smart women also understand that how someone makes them feel isn't always the best indicator of long-term compatibility. Emotional intelligence allows them to discern between short-term excitement and long-term stability. They know that butterflies can sometimes be a red flag in disguise. Often the adrenaline we mistake for attraction is actually anxiety, especially for those who have experienced trauma, neglect, or unstable love in the past. That's why smart women take their time. They let the relationship reveal itself. They don't rush to define it, to post about it, or to make promises. They observe the person's actions, how they handle conflict, how they treat others, and how they behave when things don't go their way. And being emotionally intelligent also means they are not afraid of being alone. They're not desperate for a relationship to fill a void because they've done the work to fill that space with self-worth, purpose, and self-love. Love, for them, is not an escape from loneliness. It's a sacred connection that adds to their already full life. Because of this, they are less likely to settle. They don't fall for love bombers, charmers, or emotionally unavailable people simply because they crave attention. Instead, they seek depth. They want a connection that feels both emotionally stimulating and emotionally safe. And another profound element of their emotional intelligence is their ability to regulate their own emotions in the face of conflict. Smart women don't shut down or lash out when things get tough. They know how to communicate their feelings clearly without blaming or belittling. They don't expect their partner to read their minds. They express themselves with calmness and clarity, and they choose partners who can meet them in that same space of emotional maturity. If a person lacks the capacity to resolve conflict with empathy and respect, they see it not as a challenge to fix, but as a sign to walk away. And emotional intelligence also enables smart women to hold space for their partner's emotions without taking responsibility for them. They don't become emotional caretakers, rescuers, or fixers. They understand the boundary between compassion and codependence. Just because someone is hurting doesn't mean it's their job to heal them. They believe in supporting their partner, but not at the cost of losing themselves. This clarity of emotional roles keeps their relationships balanced, healthy, and free from resentment. And furthermore, smart women know that love is not a constant high. It requires emotional labor, compromise, and intention. But they also know that not all labor is worth doing, especially if it's one-sided. Emotional intelligence teaches them to recognize the difference between working on a relationship and working for a relationship that the other person isn't equally invested in. They are willing to put in the effort, but only when it is mutual. They don't chase, beg, or plead to be chosen. They understand that love, when it's real and healthy, doesn't require suffering to prove its worth. And this wisdom helps them spot emotional immaturity early. They look for how someone handles accountability. Do they apologize when wrong, or do they deflect and gaslight? Smart women know that emotionally intelligent people own their actions, while emotionally stunted ones turn every disagreement into a power struggle. They don't stay in situations where their feelings are dismissed or minimized. Because they love themselves deeply, they won't tolerate relationships that chip away at their dignity. And even in the early stages of romance, when emotions can feel overwhelming, smart women are grounded. They let themselves enjoy the beauty of connection, but stay aware of what's happening. They know the difference between emotional availability and love bombing. They watch for red flags, not out of paranoia, but out of self-protection. They don't silence their intuition just because they want to be loved. Their emotional intelligence teaches them that if something feels off, it usually is. And they also understand the importance of pacing. Smart women don't rush to label someone the one after a few good dates. They value shared experiences over shared fantasies. They know that love grows over time through seasons of joy, stress, vulnerability, and challenge. They don't force love. They allow it to unfold naturally. And if something feels too rushed, too intense, or too unstable, they give themselves permission to step back. And in many ways, the emotional intelligence smart women possess makes them more selective, not because they're picky or afraid, but because they are intentional. They would rather wait for the right connection than waste energy on people who aren't emotionally ready. They value quality over quantity. They don't stay in relationships out of fear of being alone, because they already know how to enjoy their own company. They've cultivated wholeness on their own, and they seek a partner who adds to their wholeness, not one who fills a void. And this doesn't mean smart women don't feel deeply. On the contrary, they love with depth, devotion, and presence. But their love is conscious, not compulsive. They don't use love to escape pain or validate their worth. They enter relationships as equals, not as saviors or victims. And if the relationship begins to drain more than it gives, they leave. Not with bitterness, but with grace. Emotional intelligence gives them the strength to walk away from anything that disrupts their peace. And this strength is often mistaken for coldness or detachment, but in truth, it's the result of clarity. Smart women know the difference between emotional intensity and emotional maturity. They want passion, yes, but passion that is sustainable, grounded in trust, not chaos. They've outgrown the thrill of toxic highs and lows. What they now seek is emotional stability. Someone who shows up with consistency, who doesn't disappear when things get hard, and who communicates with honesty, not manipulation. And they've learned that love is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It shows up in everyday gestures, in listening, in patience, in compromise. Smart women value these quieter, more reliable forms of love. They appreciate emotional transparency, small acts of kindness, and a partner who makes them feel seen without having to beg for attention. They know that true love isn't proven in grand declarations, but in small repeated acts of care. And because of their emotional intelligence, smart women also give love differently. They don't love from a place of insecurity or fear. They don't smother or control. They love from a place of confidence and freedom. They encourage their partners to grow, to pursue their own dreams, to thrive as individuals. They create space in the relationship, not walls. They understand that love is not about ownership, but about partnership. And their intelligence also means they are always learning. They're willing to examine their own flaws, to admit when they're wrong, to apologize and evolve. They seek partners who are equally committed to emotional growth. They don't want perfection. They want progress. They are more impressed by humility than ego, more drawn to vulnerability than bravado. And in relationships, they remain present, but not dependent. They can offer comfort without losing boundaries. They can nurture without enabling. They know that love requires strength. No, the strength to endure toxicity, but the strength to walk away from it. Their emotional intelligence gives them this clarity. And because of it, they rarely stay stuck in relationships that dim their light. And ultimately, smart women love differently because they love intelligently. They understand that love is not just about who makes your heart race. It's about who makes your soul feel safe. They don't chase drama. They choose peace. They don't ignore red flags. They honor their intuition. They don't fall for potential. They invest in reality. Their emotional intelligence is not just a shield, it's a compass. It guides them toward the kind of love that doesn't burn them out, but builds them up. A love that is not just felt, but also understood. And there's a quiet confidence that smart women carry into relationships, not born from arrogance, but from a deep sense of self. It's a confidence that says, I know who I am with or without you. This is not emotional detachment or disinterest. On the contrary, it's what makes their love more genuine, more rooted, and more sustainable. Independence doesn't distance them from their partners. It grounds them in authenticity. Smart women love differently because they understand a fundamental truth. Being whole on their own is the foundation for building something meaningful with someone else. And from an early age, many women are taught to seek completion in relationships. Fairy tales, pop culture, and even family dynamics often sell the narrative that love is the missing piece, that happiness begins only when someone else arrives to fill the gaps. But smart women break away from this myth. They realize that real love doesn't come to complete you. It comes to complement you. They are not waiting to be rescued. They are not looking for someone to validate their existence. They have already built their lives with purpose. And if someone is to enter that life, it must be as an equal, not as a savior, not as a crutch, and not as a project. And this independence is not a rejection of intimacy, but a redefinition of it. Smart women are deeply capable of closeness, vulnerability, and commitment. They don't fear connection. They just insist that it be genuine, not codependent. They understand the difference between sharing a life and surrendering their identity. In relationships, they don't disappear into the other person. They maintain their friendships, passions, routines, and dreams. Their partner adds to their world, not becomes their world. And this self-possession is often what attracts others to them. There's something magnetic about a woman who doesn't need constant reassurance, who isn't jealous of every interaction, and who doesn't fall apart when she's alone. Her independence radiates emotional stability. It tells the world, I choose to be here, not because I have to, but because I want to. This difference between choosing love and clinging to it is everything. And smart women have often done the inner work. They've faced their fears of abandonment, healed childhood wounds, and walked away from people who tried to make them smaller. Through that process, they've built resilience. They've developed a strong sense of self-worth that isn't easily shaken by someone's opinion, attention, or absence. They know that love should not come at the cost of losing yourself, so they don't shrink to fit into someone else's life. They don't compromise their dreams just to be accepted. They remain whole and expect their partner to do the same. And this independence allows smart women to navigate love with clarity. They're not swayed by temporary highs or emotional chaos. They're not impressed by grand gestures if they're not backed by consistency. Because their life already has meaning, they don't look to a relationship to give them purpose. They look to it to share their purpose. Their love is an invitation, not a transaction. They don't keep score, manipulate, or rely on games. They don't have to. I'm for drama because their energy is focused on building a life of depth, not distraction. And independence also gives them the courage to say no, to walk away when respect is lacking, to leave when their emotional needs are chronically unmet. Smart women don't cling to the fantasy of what a relationship could be. They live in the reality of what it is. And if that reality becomes toxic, manipulative, or misaligned with their values, they don't make excuses. They make exits. Not because they don't care, but because they care about themselves enough not to stay where they're not valued. And this kind of self-trust doesn't make them hard. It makes them wise. They are soft where it matters. Loving, nurturing, open, but they are not weak. Their boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They don't push love away. They filter out what doesn't serve them. So what remains is real, nourishing, and emotionally safe. And when a smart woman falls in love, she brings her whole self to the table. She doesn't pretend to be less ambitious, less curious, or less expressive just to make someone comfortable. She believes in being fully seen, And she wants a partner who is strong enough to stand beside her, not above her, not in control of her. Her independence is not a challenge, it's a gift. It allows her partner to love her without pressure, without the weight of fixing or fulfilling her. And in fact, her independence can be liberating for both people. It creates space in the relationship, space for individuality, space to grow, space to breathe. She doesn't expect to be someone's everything, and she doesn't want them to be hers. She believes in two complete people coming together, not two half people trying to fill voids in each other. This mutual respect for independence becomes the soil for true intimacy, not forced togetherness, but chosen connection. And this mindset also impacts how he handles emotional fluctuations in the relationship. Smart women don't panic when there's a disagreement. They don't crumble under distance. They don't spiral into insecurity when their partner is temporarily unavailable. Their sense of self is so solid that they can ride the emotional waves without losing perspective. They know that love isn't always easy, but it should never make them question their worth. And because they are emotionally independent, they are generous lovers. They don't love from a place of desperation. They love from a place of abundance. They don't need constant validation. So they're free to give genuine encouragement, empathy, and support. They celebrate their partner's successes without envy. They listen without trying to fix. They give without keeping score. Their love is free because it's not a means of survival. It's an act of expression. And smart women also model self-care in a way that invites balance into the relationship. They prioritize rest, reflection, and solitude. They understand the importance of time apart to reconnect with themselves, to recharge emotionally, to maintain perspective. This doesn't threaten the relationship, it strengthens it. When both people have room to grow as individuals, the relationship doesn't become suffocating. It becomes a safe haven, a place of freedom, not control. And when challenges arise, as they inevitably do, smart women face them head on, not out of fear, but from a place of maturity. They're not afraid to ask tough questions or have uncomfortable conversations. They're not afraid to say, this isn't working, or I need more. Because they are independent, they don't fear loss as much as they fear losing themselves in something that no longer feels aligned. They believe in love, but not at the cost of their peace. And it's important to understand that their independence is not the absence of vulnerability. In fact, it enhances their ability to be vulnerable. Because they are not afraid of being alone, they are not afraid to be honest. They don't hide parts of themselves out of fear of rejection. They reveal their truth, flaws and all. Because they want real connection, not performance. They know that true intimacy requires authenticity, and authenticity requires courage. And their relationships thrive, not in spite of their independence, but because of it. Independence brings emotional balance. It eliminates neediness. It invites trust. It allows love to be a choice, renewed every day, not a dependency, rooted in fear. Their love is not possession. It is partnership, not obligation, but opportunity. And they understand that real power in a relationship is not about control. It's about trust, freedom, and mutual respect. And that's exactly what they bring to the table. A love that empowers, not entraps. A love that supports, not smothers. A love that respects difference, encourages autonomy, and grows stronger with time. And they live by the principle that the healthiest relationships are not between two people who need each other to survive, but between two people who choose each other every day, even when they don't have to. That is the strength of independence. That is why smart women love differently. For the smart woman is not a game of pursuit. It's not about chasing someone who barely looks back, waiting by the phone for a message that never comes, or proving her worth to someone too blind to see it. She's been there before, caught in the cycle of trying to earn affection, to hold on to love that was inconsistent, confusing, or conditional. But she doesn't live in that place anymore. She's evolved. She's awakened. Now she chooses. She doesn't chase. And chasing implies a power imbalance. One person running, the other trying to keep up. It creates a dynamic where worth is negotiated through effort rather than recognized through presence. Smart women reject this imbalance. They've learned that any relationship that begins with chasing almost always ends with exhaustion. So instead of running after someone who isn't emotionally available, they stay still and grounded. They wait, not passively, but intentionally, for love that flows naturally toward them, not one they have to drag into place. And there's a quiet power in choosing. It means stepping back and asking, does this person really align with my values? Do they show up for me with consistency and care? Do they make me feel emotionally safe, respected, and heard? If the answer is no, the smart woman doesn't try harder. She lets go. She doesn't fall for words alone. She observes actions. She listens to energy. She notices patterns. If someone is hot one day, cold the next, she doesn't try to decode them. She decides that inconsistency is not her language of love. And this doesn't mean she's guarded or unwilling to love. In fact, she loves deeply, but with wisdom. She gives second chances, but not endless ones. She's patient, but not naive. Her heart is open, but not vulnerable to manipulation. She understands that true love is not something you chase. It's something you meet, eye to eye, soul to soul, heart to heart. It's reciprocal. It doesn't require proving. It simply is. And choosing means knowing your worth, not just in theory, but in practice. A smart woman doesn't allow herself to become an option. She doesn't fight for a place in someone's life who is unsure about hers. She no longer confuses attention with intention. She doesn't mistake a spark for a soulmate. She sees clearly, even when it hurts. And when she feels someone pulling away, she doesn't chase harder. She lets them go. Because she knows anyone who wants to leave is already gone in spirit. And this clarity doesn't come overnight. It often comes through heartbreak, through years of loving the wrong people and calling it fate, through nights of overthinking, hoping, waiting, compromising too much. But every broken piece became a lesson. And now she no longer negotiates with red flags. She no longer stays where she has to beg to be seen. She doesn't need to force chemistry or wait for someone to figure it out. She moves with the grace of someone who knows the right person won't need convincing. And choosing also means embracing stillness in a culture obsessed with chasing. Everywhere she looks, the world tells her she must hustle for attention, validation, status. But she knows the deepest connections can't be chased. They must be cultivated. And cultivation requires presence, not pursuit. So she tends to her own garden. She builds a life that feels good, with or without someone beside her. She focuses on her passions, her peace, her purpose. And from that place of abundance, she attracts, not through effort, but through energy. And that energy is unmistakable. She walks into a room and doesn't scan for someone to impress. She simply is. There's no desperation, no hunger for approval, just quiet self-possession. Because she no longer sees love as something outside of herself. She carries it within. She doesn't need to chase someone who validates her. She already knows her own value. And when someone does show up in her life, she doesn't immediately give them access to her heart. She evaluates. She chooses deliberately, carefully, wisely. And if she chooses you, know this. It is not a whim, not a fear of being alone, not an accident. It is because she sees something real, something stable, something deep. She is not with you because she couldn't be alone. She is with you because she wants to be. That distinction changes everything. It means she won't tolerate mediocrity. She expects presence, not pretense. Effort, not excuses. She wants communication, not confusion. And she will give the same in return, because she believes love should be mutual in every way. And this doesn't mean she's harsh or unforgiving. She understands we're all human. But she's no longer interested in loving someone's potential. She's no longer hoping that one day he'll change, that one day he'll wake up and realize she's enough. She knows now, the right one won't need a wake-up call. He'll already be awake. He'll already recognize her value, not after she leaves, not when it's too late, but from the beginning, through his consistent, intentional actions. And that is the standard now. Emotional maturity, availability, consistency. She doesn't chase because she knows she deserves a love that walks beside her, not one she has to drag forward or pull from the shadows. She's not afraid of being alone. What she's afraid of is wasting her energy on someone who doesn't value her heart. And that fear drives her to honor herself, even when it's difficult, even when her heart aches, even when walking away feels like a loss. And because deep down she knows that choosing herself is never truly a loss. It's a redirection, a reminder, a reaffirmation of who she is and what she deserves. And so she stays open to love, but only the kind that shows up fully, the kind that doesn't run, the kind that chooses her too. And in love, she is not desperate for attention. She's looking for alignment. She's not chasing someone to fill a role. She's inviting someone to share a life. She wants depth, not distraction, commitment, not chaos. She doesn't thrive on the thrill of the unpredictable anymore. She wants steady. She wants real. She wants peace. And she knows she'll never find it by chasing people who fear intimacy. And when others play games, she walks away. When they send mixed signals, she doesn't try to decode them. She takes them as signs. She doesn't argue with reality anymore. She honors it. Because what she knows now is this. When love is real, it doesn't feel like confusion. It feels like clarity. It feels like calm. It feels like home. And so she chooses carefully. She chooses slowly. She chooses with her eyes wide open, not just based on who excites her, but who respects her, not just based on chemistry, but on character. She knows that love is not about how someone makes her feel in the moment, but how they make her grow over time. And because of that, she does not chase fleeting highs. She invests in grounded connection. And she knows her love is a gift, not a bargaining chip. It is something she gives when she feels safe, seen, and cherished. Not when she's chasing after someone too distracted, too wounded, or too self-absorbed to notice her worth. And because of this, the love she gives is pure, strong, steady, and sacred. And she will never again run after someone who can't meet her where she stands, because she's not standing still for lack of options. She's standing still in her power. She is not chasing love. She is becoming love. And in doing so, she draws in what is real, what is whole, and what is meant for her